This week I started the design of the rudder and trim tab for the Setka A. It's unfinished and a bit rough around the edges, but the main design is there. Hi, my name is Jelmer and this is my journey towards the Setka Atlantic Challenge in 2029. Building and preparing my Setka A sailboat named Sienna for a solo Atlantic crossing. I was in Barcelona for work, and now in the weekend I still have some free time here. I couldn't resist to visit the harbor and the sea. All these boats are bigger than the Setka, which is only 5 meters long. I don't see any boat of similar size in this harbor. I've committed myself to spend time on the project every single week, regardless of the progress. That's why I decided to do some work on the model in Fusion 360. For that, I've inserted the plan of the rudder and scaled and aligned it. A sketch with the outline of the rudder was then made, and with the given profile, the rudder was lofted into a 3D shape. For a solo Atlantic crossing, a means to have the boat steer itself is absolutely crucial. According to the rules, all entrants have to build their own wind-vane self-steering. And as many do, I chose to create a trim tab. The trim tab essentially works like an aileron on the wing of an airplane. It uses the power of the water flow to amplify the low steering input of the wind-vane. The trim tab, as part of the rudder, should pivot at around 20% of the distance between the rudder pivot and the trailing edge of the rudder. So I'll create the rod that will be rotating the trim tab by a simple extrusion. Of course, the trim tab needs to be able to move, so now I separate it from the rudder. I made a small sketch for that and extruded it into a cutting operation. And this gives it space to rotate. On the bottom, the trim tab rod will land in a bushing out of Delron. So let's make space for that. We'll also need to make sure there's no binding and the tab moves lightly. So a bit of spacing is added, which is also part of the bearing. Added to that, the rod has to extend in the bushing again. Now the bottom part of the rudder will have to make space as well. I'm sure I will revisit this part of the design in the future. The top part of the rudder still has the underwater profile to it, and I need to make the connection for the pintles, as well as further support for the trim tab rod. So now I remake the top part by extruding a rectangular shape first, to then trim it to the original shape again. Some more trimming and cleanup. And on the top we need a similar part for the pintle, so I can just copy it from below and make sure it is at the right position. And that's it for this week. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!